What's going on, everybody? It's AG here. So we are doing a live stream tonight. What I'm going to be talking about, pretty simply, the top 5 teams in each and every Division I conference. While we're going along, join me down in the comments section. I'll try to get to your questions whenever you post them. Let me see. I think I had a comment earlier. So yeah, if you post a comment, post a question, whatever, I'll post you on here. We'll talk about the question, the thought, we'll address it, and we'll talk about it together. But while we're moving along, go ahead and drop, your top 5 in each conference while we go. We're going to go basically alphabetical order, so we'll start with the American Conference, then we'll go to the ACC, and so on. We're going to go every conference, whether it's G5, whether it's P4, P5, whatever. But I'm going to try to do these live streams kind of whenever I reach a milestone, So like right now we're at, I think, 1,530 subscribers. So whenever I reach 2,000, I'll do another live stream like this. That's the plan, at least. Now, fingers crossed I ever make it to 2,000. We'll see if that happens. But as of right now, that's the plan. And when that happens, I'll do another one of these live streams. So I won't do these too often because, with everything, with jobs, all that crap, kind of makes it difficult. I was going to do this a little earlier today, but we had a tornado hit, actually. So it's been crazy here. It's been mayhem. Power's been out half the day. So I was going to do this a little earlier, but really didn't have the chance. But let's go ahead and get started, shall we? So starting off, we have the AAC. All right, so the American Conference. All right, so top 5 in order. I am going to rank these 1 through 5 on each of these. Now, some of these, obviously, you're going to notice that it's going to be different from like my tier list rankings, for example. Like last time, I know whenever I did the Big Ten, got a lot of backlash because Rutgers I had in the contender status. I think they are a contender, not necessarily the top 5 teams. We'll get to them in a second. But basically, I think they're a contender because they're scheduled. Do I think they're one of the best 5 teams in the conference? No. But because of the way their schedule plays out, I think they would have a chance to be a contender. So this is actually a little different than what we've done previously as far as the tier list rankings. But in the American, all right, we'll start at number 5, East Carolina. East Carolina, not very good last season, but they have a ton of transfers coming in that are at the P5 level. All right, so they're bringing in a lot of talent from Power 5, Power 4 schools. When you bring that into the American, you're going to have success. Number 1, the American's kind of wide open this year. SMU is gone to the ACC. All right, that's number 1. That's one of the competitive schools that's gone. Number 2, all right, Tulane, Willie Fritz has gone to Houston. All right, so that's a big drop-off from another school that was really high up. UTSA, their quarterback is finally gone, so that's another drop from a team that, would be usually competitive in the American. But that's kind of why East Carolina sneaks in here, because it's kind of a wide-open race. All right, I think Memphis is the team to beat. We'll get to them in a second. But East Carolina, I think, brings in enough talent from the P5 level, like I said, that they can kind of have a quick turnaround here this year and be competitive in a wide-open conference. Our number 4, UTSA. All right, UTSA, Jeff Traylor, really good head coach. All right, interviewed for the Texas A&M job. There were some rumors he might get that job. I think he'll probably end up most likely getting the Arkansas job next year whenever Sam Pittman gets fired. That's kind of my guess. But he's going to have question marks on offense with the quarterback Harris gone. But they have loaded up in the transfer portal on defense, so they're going to be stout. They brought in some guys from Alabama, from Texas, so they should be pretty competitive and pretty stout on defense, I think. Our number 3, Tulane. Yes, Willie Fritz is gone, but they bring in Troy head coach John Sumrall. All right, John Sumrall has won a ton of games at Troy. And at Tulane, they still, despite losing some pieces from last year, I think they have some pieces to be successful in the American. So not only, like I said, is the American wide open, but they bring back their running back, Mekhi Hughes. I think Mekhi Hughes is probably a top 10 running back in the country. And in the American, with SMU gone, like I said, that's one less talent that, would be pretty competitive in the American. Excuse me, I'm going to have to do that a little bit throughout the night. But number 2, USF, South Florida. Kind of a slept-on year last year, pretty competitive. All right, so think back to when they played with Alabama. That really wasn't, it was a fluke. Yes, Alabama was a lot better than USF, but it wasn't too much of a fluke. Like, actually, they were competitive with them for a reason. I think USF was actually pretty good, but they were a year ahead of schedule. They've got their quarterback back, Byron Brown. He's going to be a force this year in the American at USF. I think they're going to be pretty talented. I think they are one of the teams to beat in the American, and we'll kind of find out early. They have a tougher non-conference, talking about USF. They got a tougher non-con, so we'll see what they're made of pretty soon. All right, number 1 right now, I've got Memphis in the American. Memphis returns a ton from last year. They were pretty good last year, beat Iowa State in the bowl game. But Seth Hennigan is back at quarterback. He's going to put up All-American level numbers. Memphis is going to be pretty good this year. And they play Florida State in the non-con. We're going to know a lot about Memphis really quick and see what they're made of. As of right now, I think Memphis is probably the favorite to be the G5 representative in the college football playoff, even with a loss to Florida State. Unless Florida State just absolutely tanks, there's no reason Memphis can't make a run to the G5, as a G5 representative in the college football playoff, even with one loss. All right, so moving right along to the next conference, we have the ACC. All right, so the ACC, this is going to be a little different than, like I said, my tier list power ranking, because this is actually, I'm legit power ranking. I'm not necessarily worrying about their schedule. This just sit there playing head-to-head right now, who I would take. We'll start number 5. We've got Louisville. Louisville, really good year last year, made the ACC championship. Jeff Brom, I think, is a good head coach. Give him a couple years, I think he's going to be a household name in the coaching profession. I think he'll be a top 10 coach. But right now, he's got Louisville on the right track. All right, brought in a ton of transfers in the transfer portal, skill guys all over the place from Power 5 schools, bringing Tyler Shuck at quarterback from Texas Tech. He brought in originally Penny Boone from Toledo at running back. I thought was a top 10 running back, but apparently he got beat out in the spring, so he ended up transferring again. But it sounds like Louisville's loaded. They should be a candidate to win the ACC once again. Number 4, Florida State. All right, Florida State, we know what happened last year. Jordan Travis got hurt, missed the college football playoff even despite being undefeated. At the beginning of the transfer portal, I was kind of a little questionable in the offseason going with Florida State because they lost so freaking much. Like at the beginning, it was a little worrisome. They lost that much. But they've kind of reloaded in the portal. They brought in some serious talent from Georgia, from other places. You've got DJ Uiagalelei coming in at quarterback from Oregon State and Clemson. All right, he's won a ton of ball games. He's not the most impressive number-wise, but we know DJ can win. We know he can win in this conference for number 1, but we know he can win in general from what he did at Oregon State. Surround him with the talent he's going to have at Florida State. I think DJU is going to have a pretty good year this year. I think Florida State's going to be a competitor in the ACC. Our number 3, Miami. All right, Mario Cristobal. We know he does some questionable stuff as a head coach. That's kind of proven. All right, heck, that loss last year that they lost from not kneeling, I would have fired him on the spot. He deserved to get fired after that one. But this is his most talented team yet, I think, whether at Miami, whether at Oregon. I think this is the most talented team he's had. Talking about Mario Cristobal in Miami. You bring in Cam Ward at quarterback. All right, kind of some rumors he might go pro, talking about Cam Ward at Miami, but decides to transfer to Miami from Washington State. Really good dual threat guy. He's going to put up some serious numbers this season at Miami, and you surround him with the pieces they have. They were actually really close last year. I know their record doesn't necessarily show it, but Miami was in a lot of games with tough teams that, like Florida State, they almost should beat, for example. They can play with these football teams. But Damian Martinez coming in at running back as well from Oregon State. Cam Ward's going to be enough to keep them in ball games. As of right now, I think I've got them in my top 15 preseason. I know a lot of people have learned not to believe the hype on Miami, and that's justified. They're usually overranked, I think, but I think they're really talented this year and have a chance to do something special. All right, number 2, NC State. All right, I think this is Dave Doran, NC State's head coach, best team yet. All right, kind of a slept-on coach, one of the more underrated guys, Dave Doran at NC State. Done a really good job there. Kind of consistent 8-9 win team with him there, but this is his most talented team yet. I know I said that about Mario Cristobal at Miami, but I'm saying it again with NC State and Dave Doran. He brings in Grayson McCall, a quarterback from Coastal Carolina. Grayson McCall has been around a long time in college, and he's won a ton of ball games. All right, he's been at Coastal Carolina. Think back to 2020 when BYU and Coastal played that kind of midweek game with both top 25 matchups, kind of the top 2 G5 schools at that time of the season. He was the quarterback at Coastal Carolina then. He's still around. All right, he's got the redshirt year. He's got the COVID year. Comes over to NC State. NC State's going to be really good this year. They've surrounded him, talking about Grayson McCall, with guys from the portal out wide. All right, his receivers are going to be legit this year. I think NC State's going to be special this year. And with them, we'll know a lot early because NC State does play Tennessee in the non-con. So we'll see a lot pretty fast with them. Sorry, guys, I'm losing my voice here already. All right, number one, we got Clemson. All right, Clemson, I know a lot of people are down on Dabo. I know he's kind of, lost his touch, people will say about Dabo at Clemson, but I think he's going to be pretty good this year. Number one, the ACC is for the taking. All right, nobody is just standing out to me right now when looking at these teams. And Cade Klubnik, all right, he's been the quarterback for multiple years now, and they've had success. I know they haven't had Trevor Lawrence level success, Taj Boyd level success at Clemson, but they've still been, 10 wins, 9 wins. They've been really competitive. Excuse me. And so this year, I think, is finally the year they're going to kind of take over and finally make that jump in the ACC, make it back to the college football playoff. I think now is the time. I know Dabo doesn't reload in the transfer portal for some reason. I really don't know why. Eventually, you kind of got to – you're going to have to adjust eventually. I know I don't like the transfer portal. Obviously, Dabo don't like the transfer portal, but to stay consistently winning, you're going to have to load up in the transfer portal at some point because if you could keep your guys, he talked about, I've got my own transfers from my recruiting. If you could keep them, yeah, but you're losing starters. Like they lost a safety to Texas, is going to start at Texas this year. So they're losing guys, but still, I think they are the favorite right now in the ACC probably. All right, moving on to the Big 12. Let me get a drink real quick. Sorry, guys. All right, so Big 12, there's about, 6, 7 teams people are going to be talking about to win the Big 12. We'll start number 5, Arizona. Now, Arizona, if they didn't lose their head coach, all right, if they didn't lose Jeb Fish to Washington, they would have bumped up to probably number 3 for me. But Arizona, they've got some guys coming back from last year. Noah Fafita. I've got their receiver McMillan coming back. They should be really talented offensively, but I'm gonna need to see how they mesh with their new head coach. All right, Brent Brennan coming over from San Jose State. Now they could easily shoot up this board for me. They're kind of the one team I think could easily win it if all things hit. Because I need to see how they're going to do with the head coach. And then if, like I said, if all goes well, then Arizona could definitely be number 3 at least. All right, number 4, Kansas State. I think they are the favorite right now, actually, in the betting odds, which is kind of surprising to me. They lose Will Howard to Ohio State. Now, Avery Johnson, the guy they've got coming in at quarterback, a lot of people say is better than Will Howard. I don't disagree. He kind of got in at spots last year, and he looked pretty good dual threat guy. They're kind of loaded up in the running back room, and Chris Kleiman has proved he can win a lot of games at multiple schools. So I think Kansas State's going to be pretty good this year, but I think the teams above them right now are a little better. Now, I think you could make an argument that 3 through 5 could easily be swapped. You could also throw Kansas in there. Kansas, I'm a little questionable on Jalen Daniels. He's really good, but he's really injury prone too. So can he make it through the year? I hope he can, but as of right now, I got my doubts. And then, UCF, you might end up seeing them sneak in here somehow. But 4 and 5 as of right now, that's who I've got. All right, number 3, West Virginia. How quickly things turned around for Neil Brown. Go back to a year ago, backtrack to a year ago at this time. Neil Brown was kind of on the hot seat, about to get chopped, and then turned it around last year, had a really good year at West Virginia. They've got Garrett Green at quarterback. If you don't know Garrett Green, go watch his highlights. He's really entertaining. He's really good too. All right, he's a really good dual threat guy. He can run it. He can pass it. He talks smack. He's pretty entertaining as a quarterback. If you don't know him yet, you're going to know his name this year. All right, but I think West Virginia is going to be pretty good this season. Number 2, all right, so these are my clear 2 right now. I think one of these 2 is winning the conference. Number 2, Utah. All right, Kyle Whittingham has done really good things at Utah in the Pac-12. They come over to the Big 12, but Cam Rising is back in the Big 12. All right, transferred out of Texas a few years ago to go win a lot of ball games at Utah, make the Rose Bowl. But he is back now. All right, he was out last year with an injury. Talking about Cam Rising. He's a top 5 quarterback in the country for me. Not necessarily stat-wise, but similar to like DJ Uiagalelei, except better. He wins. All right, he wins a lot of ball games, and he's going to win a lot of ball games this year in the Big 12, I think, because it's up for the taking. All right, number 1, again, I have Oklahoma State. Oklahoma State returns a ton from last season, a ton of production that made the Big 12 championship last year. All right, so don't forget, last season they made the Big 12 championship, lost to Texas, but they return almost everybody almost from that team. And they had some weird games last year. Now, Mike Gundy, I'm a big fan of him. I think he's a good head coach. But they had some weird games last year. Like they lost to South Alabama pretty badly. But then they go on to make the Big 12 championship. So things that just don't make sense. But, again, a lot of this team is back from last season. All right, they're more experienced, they're more seasoned, they have a Big 12 championship appearance under their belt now. So, in my opinion, they're probably the favorites this season. All right, moving on to the Big 10. All right, we'll start at number 5. Let me get a drink real quick. All right, sorry to disappoint you guys, but Rutgers is not on the list. Okay, I know y'all, I know y'all love Rutgers, but sarcasm there. But number 5, we've got Michigan. All right, Michigan loses a ton from last year. All right, they've kind of went on this really good run with McCarthy, with Blake Corum, with Jim Harbaugh. They're all gone out the window. All right, Sharon Moore is the guy now. Now, Sharon Moore, with that being said, he has wins over Penn State and Ohio State already under his head coaching belt. Now, he's had an offseason as the actual head coach now, so we'll actually get to see what he can do. You've got Donovan Edwards at running back. He's going to be the bell cow. They're pretty good on the offensive and defensive line. And with their schedule, again, I don't take schedules into effect as far as these power rankings are concerned, but as far as Michigan's schedule is concerned, they've got a pretty favorable schedule. But the real question mark for them is going to be Alex Orji, a quarterback. All right, we know he can run. He kind of had some Wildcat appearances last season for him. But can he throw? That's the question we're all wondering, and that's kind of the question that's going to set Michigan apart. If Alex Orji can actually pass, they might be pretty dang good this season because they've got a lot of pieces. I know they lost a lot, but they've got enough pieces around them, around Alex Orji, to have success if he can actually throw the ball. Because Donovan Edwards at running back, I don't know if he's better than Blake Corum. Blake Corum put up some really good numbers, but I think Donovan Edwards may actually be better than Blake Corum. Don't forget Blake Corum was a Heisman finalist not too long ago. But look at what Donovan Edwards did against Washington in the national championship. As long as Alex Orji is inept enough, if he can actually get the ball downfield, like even with J.J. McCarthy, they didn't ask him to do that much. And Orji's a better runner than McCarthy. I don't think he's a better thrower. We'll see. But he kind of gives you a different option. You know, he could take off and run. But again, in this offense, if they don't change the offense too much, now Harbaugh's gone, so we'll see. But if they don't change the offense too much, I think Michigan will be all right if Alex Orji can actually hit. Our number 4, Iowa. All right, Iowa, we know where their defense is always stacked. Question with them is always their offense. All right. Now, number 1, their quarterback as of right now, going into this season, is going to be Cade McNamara from Michigan. You may remember him. J.J. McCarthy kind of took his spot at Michigan. Now, I don't know if he's going to be ready for opening week at Iowa. All right, he missed last year with an injury. Some rumors are he might not be ready. But if he is ready, if he is healthy, I think that's going to help that offense out because you actually have kind of a passing threat then, I think. But their defense is good enough to keep them in ball games. We've seen that before. So if they can just have an offense that can at least get some downfield momentum passing the ball, and if Cade McNamara is healthy, I think they will be able to. But if they can get some type of offense production passing-wise, there's no reason Iowa can't be a top 4 team in the Big Ten this season. Our number 3, Oregon. Oregon, coming over from the Pac-12. All right, a lot of people are really high on Oregon. I have them in my preseason top 10. I think they're going to be a college football playoff team. I think I got them at number 8 maybe right now. I've seen them in a lot of people's top 4s, which is understandable. They're loaded from the transfer portal. Now, they lost Bo Nix from last season, but they bring in Dylan Gabriel from Oklahoma. I think he's better than Bo Nix. I think Dylan Gabriel is probably the favorite, if you ask me right now, to win the Heisman this season. Now, Oregon is going to be really good despite losing Bo Nix and whatever else they lost receiving-wise because Dylan Gabriel is going to put up some really good numbers. But the main reason I think they're going to be better than they have been, talking about Oregon, is their defense. Okay, they load up in the transfer portal. They bring in a couple of guys from the portal defensively that have been really good at other places. Okay, like we bring in cornerback was a Muhammad from Washington. Oregon's loaded up on the defense, and I think they're going to be pretty good. J.M. Jones, what's going on, man? Welcome. If you got any questions or any comments or anything, go ahead and drop them down below. I'll try to get to them in a second. But if you want to drop your Big Ten top 5 while we're at it, let me know. All right, so number 2, I've got Penn State. All right, similar to Oregon, I think they've loaded up in the transfer portal defensively, and their defense is pretty good already anyway. They've got a lot of guys coming back in the secondary. Now, 2 and 3, I could easily flip-flop them. I don't think there's a clear favorite among them. Like Oregon, I think, is more talented offensively. Penn State, I think, is more talented defensively. Now, Penn State, you've got Drew Aller at quarterback still. Now, I haven't been sold on him when I've watched him. He's kind of been a little questionable to me. but I think their defense is good enough. And them and Oregon don't play each other, to be honest with you, so we're really not going to know unless they play each other in the college football playoff or something. But they do both play Ohio State, so we'll kind of be able to get a little read on, where each of them are. But besides Ohio State, I don't think anybody's beating Penn State or Oregon, and both of them might actually shock me and beat Ohio State. You never know. I think it's definitely not out of the realm of possibility. Excuse me. But next up, we've got Ohio State. All right, Ohio State is number one for me right now. I think they're the team to beat in the Big Ten right now, and maybe all in college football. Now, Ryan Day, we know the question marks around him, but speaking of what Penn State and Oregon have done in the transfer portal, Ohio State is loaded up in the transfer portal. All right, they've kind of reshaped a lot of their team from the portal. Are you bringing number one Caleb Downs, safety from Alabama? That's an instant impact player right there. You bring in Will Howard at quarterback from Kansas State. Now, I'm not the biggest Will Howard fan, and I wasn't the biggest Kyle McCord hater either. He wasn't great, but I don't think he was just the worst thing ever, like a lot of people thought. I don't think he was necessarily the problem. Now, Will Howard's going to offer a little different element. He can run a little more than you might think by looking at him. But he's made Big 12 championships before at Kansas State, talking about Will Howard. So we'll see how that translates. Now, your backfield's going to be pretty nasty. You got Travion Henderson back. We know what he can do. You bring over Quinshon Judkins from Ole Miss. You've got Ibuka back at wide receiver. Now, you lose Marvin Harrison Jr., but I think they've added enough pieces in the portal to be really good this year. And Ryan Day, I know he gets a lot of crap, but overall, I don't think he's been that bad. He hasn't been able to beat Michigan these past few years, but this team's been loaded. I mean, nobody beat them last year. They've been stacked. Now, losing to their interim head coach, I don't necessarily agree with that. I don't think that should have happened, but it did. All right, J.M. Jones says Missouri homer. All right, we'll get to Missouri in a little bit. I think they're a little bit down the road, but spoiler alert, they're probably going to be on this list. We got a lot of homers in here probably because most people, I think, have found this page through whatever preview I've done of their team. So we get a lot of homers in here. All right, so getting on to the G5 here, we've got Conference USA. All right, so a lot of these schools, Conference USA, and some of these other schools, you're probably not going to know too much about. Heck, I didn't even know too much about. I had to take notes on a couple of them. But number 5, Conference USA, Middle Tennessee. All right, Middle Tennessee brings over Derek Mason. You may remember him as the Vanderbilt head coach. All right, he's coming over to Middle Tennessee, and he's done some good things in the transfer portal. All right, and I'm kind of usually when you can bring over a P5 head coach, P4 head coach to be your coach at the G5 level, usually that kind of lends itself to have some success. So I think Middle Tennessee is going to be on the up and up. Our number 4, we've got LA Tech. Our Louisiana Tech, kind of a year last year, I'll be honest with you. But they're pretty good offensively, but defensively not so much. But transfer portal-wise, you got to get a benefit here with the G5 level because you can load up with backups to the Power 5 schools. So you can bring in a guy from the Power 5 level that's been a backup that's trying to get some playing time. You can bring him in to be a starter at your G5 team. That's what Louisiana Tech has done this year. Right? So they brought in a lot of transfers from the Power 5 schools on defense to really boost this defense. Our number 3, we've got Western Kentucky. All right, so Western Kentucky, all right, if they can figure out their quarterback situation, they should be okay. All right, they weren't bad last year. They've got a guy from the bowl game he played in the bowl game last year. What is his name? I wrote it down. Belkamp. They bring in Belkamp. All right, Belkamp did pretty good in the bowl game for them last year. They also bring over TJ Finley. You may remember him from Auburn. All right, he was a starter at Texas State last year, put up some really good numbers. And I think Western Kentucky is going to be all right in the Conference USA. Our number 2, Jacksonville State. As far as their team is concerned, they lose some pieces, but Rich Rodriguez is the coach here. All right, he wins. All right, kind of gets the benefit of the doubt there for just what he has done at Jacksonville State and other places. And then number 1, Liberty. All right, Liberty, we know they are a contender for that G5 spot in the college football playoff. Liberty, they've got Caden Salter back. They've got Quinshon Judkins back. That backfield is going to be nasty. Caden Salter is going to be like a sleeper Heisman candidate. He puts up a lot of good numbers. All right, their head coach as well, Jamie Chadwell, one of the best, if not the best, G5 coaches. All right, he's turned down multiple Power 5 jobs from what I've seen. He turned down Mississippi State this year, I heard. So Liberty, we saw what they did last year. Really good regular season, but against weak competition. And then they kind of got beat up by Oregon in that bowl game. So this year, I think that's kind of going to impact them. Like making that Fiesta Bowl last year, I think is going to impact their standing this year. Like if they go undefeated and let's say Memphis loses one game, that might impact them down the road when it comes to college football playoff talk. Oh, yeah, we're on the G5. Yeah, we're going alphabetical here, so I'm trying to think what's next. Probably getting to the M's pretty close, but appreciate you, man. Thanks for the sub. All right, moving on to the MAC. All right, so again, we've got some G5 schools, G5 conferences kind of mixed in here, but we'll get to the P5 schools again in a minute. P4, I keep calling it P5. It's going to be a hard habit to break. Sorry, guys, trying to keep my voice here. But the MAC, all right, we'll start at number 5, Ohio. Ohio, really good year last year, 10-win season. They lose some pieces, but they kind of do some good things in the transfer portal that should keep them, in that 8, 9, 7-win range. So they should be a top 5 team in the MAC. Our number 4, Eastern Michigan. All right, they went 7-6 last year. I'm looking at my notes here because I don't know the bottom half of these teams. They went 7-6 last year, but they have loaded up in the transfer portal, so that should kind of help them kind of boost up the standings in the MAC a little bit. Number 3, Bowling Green, same thing. All right, they weren't great last year, but they return a lot of production. All right, their backfield is back. Their running back last year was second team All-MAC. So having those guys back and with the rest of the teams kind of losing a lot that were above them in the MAC, I think they should be able to bump up a little bit. All right, number 2, Toledo. Jason Candle is their head coach. All right, he's done a really good job there. Now they lose their backfield, talking about Toledo. Their quarterback, DeQuan Finn, is going to start for Baylor this year, so you'll hear his name probably. Then their running back, Penny Boone. We've heard of Penny Boone. Penny Boone was the one I was talking about earlier, transferred to Louisville, but apparently left Louisville as well. So his backfield's gone. Talking about Jason Candle at Toledo. So we'll see what he can do this year. This is just giving him the benefit of the doubt here. I'm kind of surprised he haven't gotten a Power 5 job yet because he has I think he's 22-4 or something at Toledo. But they were a top 25 team at some points last year towards the end of the season. So you may see them a little bit now. All right, and number 1, Miami of Ohio. Miami of Ohio, all right, kind of a pretty good year last year. All right, they've got Blaine Gabbert's brother at quarterback. You may remember him from Missouri, J.M. Jones. I know you know Blaine Gabbert. But they've got his brother at Miami of Ohio, Brett Gabbert. All right, he's done some really good things. All right, kind of got injured a little bit last year, but he can put up some serious good numbers. He's probably the best player in the MAC this season. So I think Miami of Ohio is kind of going to take that throne from Toledo. All right, moving on to the Mountain West. All right, speaking of the Mountain West, let's see. J.M. Jones says, Memphis or Mountain West heavy for the G5 playoff spot. Love me some Sunbelt too. I would agree with you there because right now Memphis is probably my favorite as far as the G5 spot is concerned. Then Mountain West-wise, I think Boise could easily get it. We'll know a lot about them early. Boise, if they can play with Oregon, if Boise can be competitive with Oregon in that non-con game, I think that's going to really help them. Now, last year, Boise was, 7-6, so we'll talk about them in a second when I get to them, but I think Boise definitely has a chance there. Number 5, Air Force. Air Force, really good year last year, kind of made some appearances in the top 25. They lose pretty much their whole roster, though, from this past season, but their head coach, Troy Calhoun, has done a really good job of Air Force. He's been there 20 years now, and he's won almost every season he's been there. Number 4, Colorado State. Colorado State, all right, not the best year last year. I think they went 5-7. But their quarterback, Braden Fowler, is a really good quarterback. All right, you're going to hear about him a little bit in the Mountain West this season. All right, he puts up some pretty good numbers, really tall, lanky guy. You probably saw him against Colorado. But Colorado State should kind of move up the pecking order because of these teams are going to move down. Number 3, Fresno State. All right, Fresno State, they've got Mikey Keene back at quarterback. They had a pretty good year last year, 9 wins. Mikey Keene puts up really good numbers. You might have heard that name before if you're a really deep college football fan. He puts up some good numbers there at Fresno. All right, number 2, we've got UNLV. So UNLV, I think, is going to be really talented this year. Now, they lose some stuff in the transfer portal. I see what you know about UNLV, Barry Odom. All right, but they lose some stuff in the transfer portal. And they lose some stuff, but they bring some stuff in the transfer portal is what I was trying to get at UNLV. They got their receiver, Ricky White. All right, Ricky White is going to be really good this season at receiver. They bring in Matthew Sluka at quarterback. All right, Matthew Sluka, if you don't know who he is, all right, he has been at Holy Cross. We'll talk about their head coach in a little bit, but he's been at Holy Cross and put up some serious good numbers at Holy Cross. I think UNLV is going to air it out. Odom always wins at UNLV. All right, and we saw kind of last year, the Mountain West was kind of a big jumble. All right, there was really no clear-cut team. It came down to a weird tiebreaker to even see who makes the playoff. Who makes the Mountain West Championship. And then as far as Boise is concerned, all right, they made kind of a big turnaround last year. They fired their head coach in the middle of the year. Dylan, I'll get to your comment in 1 second, man. They fired their coach mid-year. All right, they bring over Spencer Danielson. They promote him as head coach. All right, he does a really good job midway through the year by promoting him. They kind of go on a run to the Mountain West Championship. And they've got every reason to be kind of in that G5 conversation for the college football playoff. All right, we were talking about that a second ago. But they bring back Ashton Jeanty at running back. Ashton Jeanty is one of the best running backs in the country. He's actually pictured down there, if you can see him. They also bring in quarterback Malachi Nelson from USC, former 4 or 5 star recruit by Lincoln Riley at USC. I think they're going to do really good things at Boise. We'll see a lot about them when they play Oregon in the non-con. Now, last year, like I said, they were like 7-6, so not a great year, but they kind of turned it on towards the end, so I think they're going to kind of turn it on quick. All right, Dylan says, Colorado State is high in my opinion. Why are they number 4? So I kind of think the Mountain West, besides these top 3 teams, I kind of think it's up for grabs this year. I know Colorado State wasn't that good last year. Air Force was, but they kind of lose their whole roster. Colorado State, I think they bring back enough and have kind of brought in enough pieces in the portal. As far as what they brought back, though, quarterback in particular, I think that helps them jump up a little bit. But last year, we're looking at Air Force and these other 3 were kind of the main 4. Wyoming, for example, their head coach is gone, so I think they're going to kind of drop a little bit. But Colorado State, I think, has a pretty good chance to be somewhat competitive in the Mountain West compared to last year. All right, moving on to the SEC. All right, let me get a drink before we dive into this one. All right, SEC. All right, we'll start at number 5. And as far as teams that made the cut, that didn't make the cut, I would say 6 and 7 are probably LSU and Tennessee. But number 5, we've got Ole Miss. All right, Ole Miss. Jackson Dart is back at quarterback. All right, they lose Quinshon Judkins to Ohio State, but Lane Kiffin has absolutely destroyed it in the transfer portal. Their D-line is stacked. All right, they have loaded up from the portal. This is probably his best team he's had at Ole Miss, and we saw they're kind of them and Penn State are probably the biggest beneficiaries from expanding college football playoff. And Ole Miss, I think, is going to be pretty good this year. I don't know if they're going to necessarily beat Alabama, but yeah, I need some water. I know. I think Ole Miss is going to be pretty good. They have loaded up in the portal, and with what Lane Kiffin has coming in the portal with Jackson Dart, they're going to be pretty competitive in the SEC. Let me get some water. Jam Jones says I need some water. I agree. Yeah, man, I'm with you on the G5 ball. I don't know too much G5-wise. I know kind of the bigger ones, like probably the top 5 teams in every conference I know, but it kind of depends on the year. I'll follow them throughout the year, and then I'll kind of get a little more knowledge on them, but not too much knowledge. All right, number 4, we've got Missouri. All right, Missouri, all right, they've got Brady Cook back. They've got Luther Burden back. That should be enough to keep them competitive, number 1. But also, all right, they lose Cody Schrader. That's kind of been their do-it-all running back. But what they have done in the transfer portal at running back is really going to help them. All right, you've got Marcus Carroll coming over from Georgia State. He was arguably a top 10 running back last season. So I think he's going to be really good at Missouri, kind of be able to do what Cody Schrader did. Now, Eli Drinkwitz was kind of iffy last year, but what he did last year kind of saved his job and kind of has Missouri on the up and up. I was surprised last year. They were a lot better than I thought they were. I kind of had question marks even though they were doing really good. But, what they did, how competitive they were in some games actually kind of shocked me. All right, Dylan, let's see what you got here. Man, I wouldn't mind seeing it, but I don't know. Dylan, I got a question for you. Do you think Sam Pittman makes it through this season? I don't know if I do, man. I hope he does, but I think they kind of brought in Bobby Petrino to kind of be his replacement in the middle of the year. Dylan, you missed it at the beginning of the video. I was talking about UTSA's head coach, Jeff Traylor. I was saying I think he'll be the next Arkansas head coach down the line, probably next year. But I don't know if Sam Pittman's going to make it, man. I hope they do for you, but I don't see it happening. All right, J.M. Jones says, Boise has always been strong. Didn't their longtime head coach retire? Well, their longtime head coach was, which that's been a while ago, I guess, but Chris Peterson, he went to Washington. Like, that's been, I don't know how long I might be talking about somebody else than you are. But Chris Peterson went to Washington like 10 years ago or whatever. Now, last season, I think they kind of started really crappy, like almost 0-5. Don't quote me on that, but they started really bad. They fired their head coach in the middle of the year and then promoted one of the coordinators, the interim head coach, and then kind of went on a run to the Mountain West Championship in the middle of the season. So they started really bad last year and then kind of turned it on. And then the guy they promoted to head coach is their head coach now. Like, he got the job after making the Mountain West Championship. Our number 3, Alabama. All right, Alabama, Nick Saban's gone. All right, so we've got a lot of question marks surrounding Bama. They bring in Kalen DeBoer from Washington as their head coach. How is his offense going to mesh with Jalen Milroe? That's the question. Now, I think it's going to be really good, but we're going to have to see because Jalen Milroe, well, last season I'll say this. Sorry, he didn't have a lot of protection on the O-line. His center couldn't freaking snap. His O-line couldn't block. But in addition to that, he couldn't really throw very good. He kind of looked a little iffy in the pocket. So how is his offense going to mesh with DeBoer's offensive scheme? I don't know. Is he going to be able to have a Penix-type season? We'll see. I think Jalen Milroe is probably the best athlete on the field at all times. He's a really good runner. Definitely, for sure. He's arguably the best athlete. But can he actually throw when asked to with DeBoer's offense? We're going to have to see. But they've kind of reloaded in the portal. They've brought in a lot of guys on the O-line. They've kind of shored up that O-line. But they lost a lot of pieces from last season. All right, they lose. We talked about Caleb Downs earlier. They lose Isaiah Bond, their receiver, to Texas. They lose a lot. So there's a few question marks for Alabama, but I think all in all, they're going to be fine in the long run. All right, Dylan says, Jeff Traylor's my top candidate for the next Arkansas head coach too. I would agree. He's been there before, and he's done a good enough job at UTSA to kind of garner that attention. He interviewed for the A&M job last year. We talked about that earlier. I wouldn't be mad at that. I think he'd do a good job at Arkansas. Now, I'm from Texas. He as a special teams coordinator here, he was a little iffy, I'll be honest with you, but he's done a good job as a head coach, though. All right, number 2, Texas. All right. Speaking of Texas, all right, really good year last year. I'm still a little questionable on Steve Sarkisian, I'll be honest with you. But they bring in a bunch of guys from the portal skill-wise, okay? Quinn Ewers loses pretty much everything besides him on offense. All right, their running back's gone. Their receivers are gone. A receiver, Worthy's gone. A.D. Mitchell's gone. Jordan Whittington gone. J.T. Sanders, a tight end, is gone. They lose a lot, all right? But they've kind of loaded up in the portal. And Quinn Ewers, I think he's good enough. We're going to have to see this year, though. He's going to get a chance to air it out a little more because, like I said, everybody's gone. Running back gone, receivers, everybody. So we're going to see what he's made of this year. I think he's got really good arm talent, number 1. They kind of shocked me last year, I'll be honest, because even as a Texas fan, being from Texas, I kind of had my questions on him last year because, like I said, I've never been sold on Steve Sarkisian as a head coach. But he made the college football playoff last year. They almost beat Washington somehow. I don't know how the heck they ended up coming back from like 2 touchdowns down with 2 minutes. But they kind of got lucky with that Dylan Johnson injury. But shocked me last year. I didn't think they would beat Alabama in the regular season. They did. So can they compete in the SEC? I think the answer is yes because they beat Alabama. But can they do it week in and week out? That's another question. We'll see. All right, number 1, we've got Georgia. All right, similar to Texas, they kind of have some question marks. All right, they've got Carson Beck back at quarterback. Kirby Smart has earned the reputation of being the number 1 team in the country every year now, kind of taking that Nick Saban throne. But similar to Texas, Carson Beck's back at quarterback, but everybody else is gone. All right, Lad McConkey's gone to receiver. Brock Bowers is gone to tight end. So what are you going to do when you don't have all those weapons? All right, Carson Beck kind of he was okay last year, I thought, but looking at his numbers, he actually put up some really good numbers last season that I didn't realize. Passing-wise, he was almost like towards the top half as far as like the top 5 quarterbacks in the nation almost as far as passing yards is concerned. But I think they're going to be pretty good. Their defense is always stacked. But how good is Carson Beck really without those weapons? That's what we're going to have to see. All right, let's see. J.M. Jones says, I don't like Petrino. Oh, y'all talking about y'all talking about Arkansas. I see you now. I got you. Yeah, I don't know. We'll see. I think they might have brought in Bobby Petrino, kind of be the. I don't think he'll be the head coach in the long run, but be like the interim head coach middle of the year. All right, Sunbelt. Okay, so this is another one. All right, similar to the Mountain West, I think kind of could sneak into that G5 spot, especially those top two teams. We'll get to them in a little bit, though. Start number 5, we have Georgia State. All right, Georgia State loaded up in the transfer portal Power 5-wise. All right, they bring in a new head coach, Del McGee. He was the Georgia running back coach, kind of similar to Syracuse. Okay, they brought in Fran Brown, and he kind of loaded up in the transfer portal. Del McGee, I think it was like 2018, 2019, was like the number 1 recruiter in the nation. Similar to Fran Brown to Syracuse, like I said. And so he's kind of already showed that he can bring in talent to Georgia State via the transfer portal. Now, will it translate to success as a head coach? That's to be determined. But half the battle as a head coach, I've said this before in other videos, like half the battle is getting talent in your building. He's done that at Georgia State. All right, he's got a lot of Power 4, Power 5 guys walking in from the transfer portal. They should ascend up the standings a little bit. Our number 4, Marshall. Marshall, kind of a down year last year. All right, they've got a head coach by the name of Charles Huff. You might have heard of him. He's kind of always in job hunts. Like, he's always listed as a candidate when like these Power 5 jobs open. I don't know why, but he is, so I guess he does something right. Now, they were pretty bad last year. They were sub 500, but fairly close. They bring in, trying to read my own handwriting here, Braylon Braden, something like that, from Tulsa. All right, Tulsa's quarterback. If you haven't watched his film, he's actually pretty good. I forgot he transferred there. I talked about that a few months ago and completely forgot. But he can run the ball really good. Now, the jury's still out. Can he throw the ball? But running-wise, he's pretty impressive. He's pretty fun to watch. On number 3, we've got James Madison. Let me get a dream before I dive into these top 3. Our number 3, James Madison. Now, they lose their head coach and a lot of guys to the transfer portal, 2 other spots. So they lose their head coach, Kurt Signetti, to Indiana. They lose their quarterback, Jordan McLeod, to one of the teams above them. We'll talk about them in a second. But I'm kind of giving them the benefit of the doubt here. They bring in Bob Chesney as head coach. All right, he's done really good things at the FCS level at Holy Cross. So we were talking about UNLV's quarterback earlier, Matthew Sluka. He played for this guy at Holy Cross. I kind of thought he would come with him to James Madison, but he ended up not. But James Madison should be all right. All right. Not only Bob Chesney, as he won before, they also bring in running back Io from North Texas. He put up some really good numbers last year. All right, diving in the top 2. Number 2, Texas State. Now, if you were to ask me, looking at their schedules, which one of these I think has a better chance of going undefeated, it'd be Texas State. But we'll talk about that in a little bit. This is just pure power ranking if they're playing each other. All right, Texas State. G.J. Kinney, pretty good job year 1 last year. All right, he reached 8 wins. Now, like I said, the main reason they're here is because they brought number 3's quarterback to their team. All right, so James Madison's quarterback, Jordan McLeod, really good dual threat guy. If you haven't heard of him, go look him up. He puts up some really good numbers. He transfers in conference to Texas State. All right, and they have every chance to go undefeated. Texas State, look at their schedule. They probably have an easier schedule than Liberty. Think back to last season, kind of what everybody said about Liberty going into Oregon. That's Texas State this year. All right, they play nobody. No reason they can't go undefeated. All right, Appalachian State is number 1 for me. All right, I think they're going to be really good this year. Now, they have a tough non-conference. I think they play Clemson, and they also play somebody else. I can't think of it off the top of my head. I want to say Tennessee, but that might be wrong. They play Clemson number 1, though. So, Clemson, we talked about them earlier. They're Clemson. All right, no matter if people have question marks on them or not, they're still Clemson. But Appalachian State, they bring back Joey Aguilar at quarterback. They were really good last year. Double-digit win team almost. Actually, they were a double-digit team. I take that back. But Joey Aguilar, go look at his stats. All right, go watch his film. He's done really good things at Appalachian State. He's won a lot of games at Appalachian State. And as of right now, I think they are the best team in this conference. They get to play Clemson in the non-con, like I said, so we'll kind of get to see a little bit on really what they're made of. We got a few comments here, my bad. Petrino lied about a motorcycle. Yeah, a motorcycle accident was a little... Yeah, you can't be caught riding on the bike with a student. I think that's what it was. When Bobby Petrino got caught... Well, number one, he wrecked the bike. Can't do that. But if you remember... let me pull up his picture for y'all. He wrecked the bike and... where's this... Let me... This happened right here. He wrecked the bike and then got caught for... I think he had... I don't know. You know more than I do. Dylan. But didn't he have like a cheerleader or a student from Arkansas on the bike with him or something? I don't really remember. All right, J.M. Jones. All right. Missouri is most questionable at kicker and secondary. How does Texas secondary look this year? You're just not... Their secondary is going to be iffy. All right, they lost some pieces. Now, their secondary last year was iffy enough. All right, Washington just absolutely torched Texas, but they couldn't get any pass rush. So it was hard on who to blame. Like, do I blame the secondary? But also, they're covering for 20 seconds. Nobody can cover that long. They bring in some good guys from the portal. They bring in a safety from Clemson that, Dabo loves that transfer portal. So he lost starting safety to Texas. So that's going to benefit Texas a little bit. But defensively, I think they should be a little better than they were last year. Now, they lose Sweat and Murphy at D-tackle. But they've got a guy coming in from UTSA. I can't think of his name off the top of my head. I want to say Trey Moore, I think's his name. But he almost led the nation in sacks last year at DN. So that should help get some pressure, which I think will help the secondary in turn, But they lose a lot defensively. But I think they should be a little better. All right, Dylan asks, who do you think is going to win the national championship? As of right now, I'm trying to think. I actually did a video yesterday on, what's the word I'm looking for? On who was going to make the college football playoff. Let me pull that up real quick and I'll show you what it looks like. There you go. All right, so yesterday I pulled this up. All right. Yeah, there we go. You can see it now. So yesterday we talked about it a little bit on a video I did. I might have posted that this morning. But this is what my current college football playoff predictions look like. Now, as far as who's the actual favorite, and also on these, okay, this isn't necessarily the top four teams. Remember, the top four are automatic qualifiers, whoever wins their conference. So I'm not saying Oklahoma State's third best team in the country, but I think they're going to win the Big 12 right now, is what I'm getting at with this. As far as who would win it, I would say it's got to be Ohio State or Georgia as the favorites right now. Now, I think Ryan Day is a pretty good head coach, but also I'm not sold on him completely. I'm not sold on Will Howard, so I'd probably lean Georgia. But again, Georgia has a lot of question marks themselves besides Carson Beck and the defense. Can these skill guys step up, at receiver? Can ETN step up at running back? Can they find a replacement for Brock Bowers? Brock Bowers did a ton for him. Now, we're going to see what Beck's made of. If Beck is the real deal, and stat-wise he is, but, will he be actually game-wise? To be determined. But as of right now, I'd probably lean Georgia. But once you get to Ohio State, Georgia right now, it's almost 50-50 for me. I think Ohio State's more talented, but that's because Georgia's just unknown right now at the skill positions. But that's, as of right now, they're unknown. That could easily change. But guys, if you got any more questions, you can throw them in real quick. I was going to go close to an hour. We're at 50 right now. So if you got any questions, go ahead and throw them in here. I'll get to them in a second. But I'll talk about this while I got it up. So looking at my playoff, I do have a video on this as far as breaking it down. But right now I've got, let's see. Make this bigger so I can see it. Hold on. My bad, guys. I'm trying to navigate this freaking thing so y'all can actually see it. There we go. Should be able to see it now. All right, so let's see. Let me move my head so you can see it. But up here, I know you can't see it because of my head, but I've got Penn State and Missouri as of right now there. Penn State, as of right now, I've got losing to Ohio State, and that's about it. Let me move my head so y'all can see it. There we go. But above me, Penn State, Missouri at 7-10. All right. Penn State, I think, will lose to Ohio State. Missouri, I think I've got losing to Alabama right now, but both of them, I think I have one loss. And then below me, it sounded like I said below me. I said below me. Excuse me. Oregon and NC State. All right, Oregon I've got with one loss to Ohio State. NC State I've got with one loss to Clemson. But I've got NC State beating Tennessee. So I kind of said that in my video on this one. It was like, would you take as many SEC teams as we have here? Would you take a 2-loss LSU, or would you take a 1-loss ACC conference champion loser? So basically, NC State lost to Clemson in the ACC championship is kind of what I'm getting at here. So would you take another SEC school, which would be a 2-loss LSU with losses to, I want to say, Alabama and Georgia, or would you take a 1-loss NC State, which has a win over Tennessee? I think they would probably throw in NC State just to not have so many SEC schools, because eventually you run into like the problem where when you have so many SEC schools, these guys have already played each other. Now, with that being said, you could easily throw LSU in here for Oregon. But to play Oregon, it wouldn't make a difference, I guess. But now on the other side, we got Texas. I need to figure out which way I'm pointing, because I'm actually pointing the other way. Texas and Memphis, 5-12. All right, Texas, I've got losing one game right now in the regular season to Georgia. Memphis, I've got either undefeated or with one loss at Florida State. I don't think it'll matter, because I think Florida State's going to be pretty good. I've got them in the hunt. You just can't see them. But I think Memphis, one loss or undefeated, as long as they play with Florida State competitively, and I think they will. And I think they can beat them, actually, but they'll get in. All right, then 8-9, we've got Alabama, Ole Miss. They don't play each other this year, but I think both of them are going to have one loss. Now, as far as who Georgia's going to play in the SEC championship, there's no telling, because I said this before, Georgia's schedule is so freaking tough. I don't see how they go undefeated. Like, they play Clemson, too. So their schedule is so tough. I don't know how the heck they're going to go undefeated. I don't think it's possible, talking about Georgia. Now, pretty much every other SEC team on here I've got with one loss, so I don't know how the tiebreakers necessarily going to work, because they don't all play each other as far as who would actually get in the championship, so we'll see. Then for Clemson, all right, Clemson I've got, I think, with 2 losses, so I've got them losing to Georgia, losing to NC State in the regular season, and then beating NC State in the ACC championship. Oklahoma State, I've got them undefeated. I've got them beating Utah in the Big 12 championship, Georgia, I've got with one loss. I don't know where it's going to happen, but again, they have such a freaking tough schedule. I don't see how they make it through it unscathed. I'll pull up their schedule here in a second so we can look at it together. And then Ohio State, I've got them undefeated right now, but they play a pretty tough schedule too. They play Oregon, they play Penn State, they play Michigan. It's going to be tough. Let me pull up Georgia's. Dylan says, I would like to see Clemson versus Texas. Love to see Clemson versus Texas. That'd be a pretty good matchup right there, man. I'll be honest. Originally, I was kind of against the 12-team playoff, but I think it's going to add some entertainment at least. I don't want too much of a watered-down product, but I think it's going to at least be pretty entertaining. Dylan says, Georgia is a pretty good prediction to win it all. Yeah, it's not really being too bold, I guess, on the Georgia pick, But bold prediction in the regular season, Arkansas beats Oklahoma State. Okay. Hey, I wouldn't be shocked. Oklahoma State freaking lost to South Alabama last year and still made the Big 12 championship, So I could see Arkansas beating them. Because who's Arkansas's quarterback this year, Dylan? I'm trying to think off the top of my head. I can picture him, but I can't. Sometimes it's a G5 guy. Oh, it's Boise's the old quarterback. What's his name? Something starts with a T. Boise State's old quarterback. That's who it is. Taylor Green. There we go. That's the name I'm thinking of. All right, J.M. Jones says, I lied there. Missouri is questionable at kicker, and special teams seem like far secondary. So far, secondary contained was a weak link for Texas last year. Yeah, dude, last year, that freaking – well, number one, I didn't think they were going to make the playoff. Talking about Texas, like, they kind of shocked me last year. I didn't think they beat Alabama, and they did. And I didn't think they'd make the playoff, but it was frustrating to watch against Washington because Michael Penix Jr. had all day back there, man. No pass rush. And as good as Sweat and Byron Murphy were at D-tackle, you can't have a 350-pound D-tackle in pass rushing. It's just stupid. I mean, when that happens, he's never gonna. I mean, he's never gonna catch. Sweat couldn't catch me. You know, he ain't even weighing at the combine because he weighs so much. Like he's not catching my. That was so frustrating because it was like I really don't think secondary was that bad. No, they were bad. All right, they definitely were questionable, but like it was almost like like I'm a coach. I coach secondary actually. To be honest with you, like that's my job. I'm a high school coach. I coach secondary, and you can't be asked to coach. I mean to cover for 15 seconds. It's not going to happen. I don't care what kind of I don't care if it's NFL secondary. I can't cover that long. Taylor Green. Yeah, Taylor Green. That's the one I was talking about. Arkansas quarterback. Yeah, I don't know because I think I'm kind of skeptical. I'm not super skeptical on Arkansas. Like I think they actually got some talent. So I was trying to look like whenever I was doing my SEC power rankings. Sorry guys, I'm dying here. Power's been out all day. Been sweating my butt off in here. But I was trying to find an SEC team kind of in the lower tier that had an easy enough schedule to kind of maybe sneak in when I was doing my SEC tier list power rankings. Because Arkansas also brings over the running back from Utah. I can't think of his name. He brings over what the heck is his name? Something Johnson. Jaquindon Johnson or something like that. He used to be a quarterback at Texas, and then he was the running back at Utah with Cam Rising. Let me pull up Georgia's schedule for y'all. I was talking about that. There we go. All right. Let me try to move my head out the way. There we go. All right, so this is Georgia's schedule next year. All right, so like I said, it's pretty freaking tough, man. Like, they don't really get too many off weeks, man. So you got Clemson week one. Week one, I can't wait for that one. You got Clemson week one. All right. Then you kind of got a couple games that are breaks, but then you've got at Alabama. They play at Texas. They play at Ole Miss. They're going to lose one of those games, I think. I don't know which one it's going to be, but having all three of those away, being at Alabama, at Texas, at Ole Miss, I don't see how they make it through that undefeated. I don't know how any team could. I mean, it's just such a tough. Now, I get them at least spaced out enough. That might help, but wouldn't it be? It'd be hilarious if, let's say, they kind of look ahead after Texas, they're undefeated, looking ahead to Ole Miss, then Florida somehow sneaks up and beats them. But they also play Tennessee right after Ole Miss. That's not easy. Georgia Tech at the end of the year. Georgia Tech played with them last year. Georgia Tech's going to be better. Not an easy schedule. I don't see how they make it through this undefeated, talking about Georgia. Not going to be easy by any means. Dillon, Texas. I can't tell you the exact school, but somewhere in Texas. But let's see. Let me pull up this. Sorry, guys. I don't do too many lives, so I'm adjusting here. All right, guys. But thanks for watching. That's going to end the live stream tonight. All right. But those are my top 5 teams in each conference, as well as talking a little bit more about some other things. But thanks for joining. If you're new here, if you enjoyed what you saw, make sure to like this video for me and subscribe if you have not already. Like I was saying at the beginning of this video, I'm going to try to, like every time I reach a milestone, like I'm at about 1,500 subs right now. Once I reach 2,000, I'll try to do another live stream and so on. All right, depending on how this video does. But thank you for watching. If you got any other questions, drop them down in the comment section. Thanks for watching. Appreciate y'all, guys. Till next time, AG, out.